Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Nairobi Health Show. Today I've got Eileen Durfee. Eileen, thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for thinking of me, Dave.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by your bio and really excited to hear your story because this is not the usual story. It's a little different than a lot of other guests that I've had. And so I think this will be a lot of fun to explore some unique territory. And let me just read your bio because I want to get this right. And then we'll have you talk a little bit more about that. But for those of you listening, Eileen Durfee is an engineer who used to work in nuclear power plants, but became sick due to chemical exposure over time. She dealt with chronic pain, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, and low energy. I got to try that again. Hypothyroidism shouldn't be that hard to say, but and low energy. Her quest for health was ultimately successful, and her in-depth research and experimentation led to 7 utility and 3 design patents in the health space. She founded Creatix Solutions to create and distribute products worldwide to help people eliminate toxins from their bodies and cleanse themselves of many of these symptoms of modern living. We'll be discussing chronic pain, the miracle of ozone, photo and sauna therapy, weight loss, and more. So Eileen, that's a pretty interesting and painful background. Mixed bag there. You've been very successful, it sounds like, in your life, but you've also dealt with some real stuff. Talk to us about how you arrived here.
Well, I mean, I was born with twisted hips and had pain, had to wear special shoes, grew 9 inches in 3 months. You know, that was really painful. I got ran over by a car in a parking lot. And, you know, I mean, every breath hurt, you hurt everywhere, you know, from structural issues. And, you know, thankfully I got into some good spinal fitness training and was able to recover that. But then, you know, after having a silver amalgam filling, I think when I was 19, then I became allergic to everything. I mean, literally lungs closing up, hives. Wow. You couldn't eat the same thing within 72 hours, learned about leaky gut, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was all my ills. And then I learned more about toxins replacing the good minerals so then the cells don't function, and looking at the root cause of why was I having pain and allergy reactions, and which led me to quit building houses and, you know, go back to school and become an expert in analyzing tissue biopsies, you know, through hair analysis, you know, to manipulate chemistry to restore minerals and function. And then when you started doing that, the detox reactions from any program was just accentuated. So then, you know, I got into the gizmos and gadgets so that you can feel like Superwoman and still detox and have less pain. And so it's a passion now because I suffered for way too many years trying all the medicines and the things that the doctors wanted me to do. And then before that, before I got that training, I was chasing symptoms with natural substances and causing reactions and pain in my body, you know, fixing one symptom and then a bunch more crop up. And so it's been a journey, but now at 59 years old, I mean, I don't have any pain in my body. I feel good. I don't have allergies anymore. I mean, I still like to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Instead of having the junk. But yeah.
About when was the turning point for you?
Well, I mean, I became really sick in about 1983 and then started doing all kinds of different cleanses and, you know, detox things. So I was able to manage my symptoms without medications in the 1990s. And then I was doing really pretty good, managing most of the time. I mean, I could eat more foods. I could be around, you know, not have my lungs close up if somebody had cologne on or something like that. But it was 2011 when I really quit chasing symptoms with natural substances and started working on the root cause and making that connection between detox. It's like junkyard parts in your cell, so obviously you can't function normally. So that's when that shift happened.
Interesting. And the science on detox is all over the map. And detox is something I think we all intuitively understand. Of course, our body is doing it every day the best it can. We all understand that we take in food and then we poop out waste and we sweat and we breathe. Our lungs are fairly good at getting rid of some toxins and whatnot. And there are scientists out there who say, this whole detox thing is a load and a load of crap. Like there's no evidence that there's, heavy metals lurking in your cells for very long. Your body gets rid of them. And heavy metals might be a bad example because actually chelation therapy is fairly commonly accepted in medicine. But you see what I mean? And then there's also on the health side, I do see some people that make me concerned a little bit because I feel like they sometimes go overboard with cleanse stuff. Now, this has been a very serious matter for you. You've had to really figure it out for yourself. You talked about the silver fillings. I mean, these things are just basically, let's install a little bit of poison in someone's tooth, and just have a tiny bit of mercury infest their system for a long time. And so in that case, of course, the body is, it doesn't matter how hard it works. That stuff's built in, right? But, and actually, maybe that's a point we ought to start with. Like for those of you that still have silver fillings, have them carefully removed. I've had two dentists on my show actually talking about oral health, and we've had this discussion, and many people of our generation especially just don't realize what they're missing out on. So when did you get that tooth put right?
See, very early when Huggins first came out with, the notification to people, and I got that done when I lived in Kansas. No, when I lived in Illinois. So that would have been about 1985, 86. And that was, before the supposedly natural dentist. I mean, because he measured the electrical voltages and took them out in a certain order, but he never put the dam in either. But I had a high white blood cell count, real low immunity. And after I got those out, I did the Bernard Jensen colon cleansing, Okay. And then my white blood cell count came back down to normal, and a lot of the infections and things that I was suffering from improved. But yeah, so learning about mercury, I mean, the exposure that we're getting now is from silver amalgam fillings, but also eating certain types of fish. And one of the things that I see prevalent on hair analysis reports is high mercury. And it'll be in people that don't have silver amalgam fillings, that maybe eat a lot of fish. And then I see people that eat fish and have silver amalgam fillings with very low amounts of mercury in your hair. But that doesn't mean it's not sequestered in the cells in the body. But one encouragement that I can give the listeners to really deal with mercury in their body is some chemistry. My son was, taking chemistry classes at University of Washington and everything like that about the time that I was going to school to learn about detox and hair analysis. One of the things he said about mercury, he says, Mom, mercury is so bad because your body could use like cadmium for zinc. And you'd actually feel a boost of energy, kind of like having an energy drink or smoking a cigarette. You get this temporary stimulation in your body because cadmium will work in the cell enzyme binding sites where zinc is supposed to be. But with mercury, so your body will sacrifice and say, okay, I can't get zinc where it's supposed to be, so I'm going to put cadmium there. But, so I'll sacrifice and I'll deal with 20% function, even though it's got all these other bad problems. So with mercury permanently disables the cell enzyme binding site from functioning. It'll either lodge in that enzyme binding site or somewhere else on the cell, and it permanently disables the cell's ability to function. That's how bad mercury is. And if you have enough cells in an enzyme system, see, people don't realize that like your thyroid gland has more selenium by design than any organ in the body. It's kind of like you drive a car, your wheels go where your wheels are. Your thyroid gland has more selenium. But what on the table of elements chart is antagonistic or synergistic with selenium? Mercury. So with all these people with the thyroid problems, it could be because it's, instead of having selenium, bioavailable selenium in the cells to function, it's mercury. And so we really need to stop exposure. You know, every time you chew or put hot liquid on a silver amalgam filling, you know, you're having mercury gas go and affect your brain, and you wonder why you have anxiety or you have all these other issues. I mean, let's look at the mercury and get that out of the body. You know, now they put dams in, and there's a lot of ecological dentists that can do it safely. And you'd be amazed at how much better you feel.
Okay, so great. I mean, that's excellent, important information for especially those listening who still have those things. They got to get them out.
Yeah.
Now, back to what I said earlier about the, the issue of cleansing. You know, cleansing is big business. There's all kinds of products. There's all kinds of promises. There's all kinds of diets. And of course, again, back at the very basic level, our body should be cleansing itself all the time. We should be drinking lots of water. We should be eating lots of vegetables. We should be supporting good elimination on a regular basis, et cetera. So that's the basic level. Now, you've mentioned mercury as something, though, that is a pernicious problem. What other problems are there that are like that your body can't really deal with in the simplistic way that I'm describing, just through normal digestion and elimination?
There's a major principle that people need to become familiar with. It's not mainstream in this wellness revolution, even with detox experts. And that is, the body is created in a way that it will always use the most efficient item present to get something done. And every cell in your body has an enzyme binding site and needs a mineral. Like, you know, your bones, 99% of the bones are the calcium is in your bones, teeth, and nerve fibers. So you got to think about the substitutions. Yeah. You know, lead substitutes calcium. So if your body has a problem with delivering calcium to the cells, the body will use lead instead, but it won't give it up until you restore the calcium metabolism so that the calcium can get into the cells. I mean, lots of older women, they're saying do these, you know, hormones so you don't have osteoporosis and all that, but that's not the real secret to having strong bones. And so it's not just, is my body going to be strong? And if it's supposed to be detoxing, but if you have a mineral imbalance that is caused by an endocrine disruption based on stress, then your body will be using it to survive. It will not give it up. It will not detox it. And so these practitioners that use chelation, either natural chelators or synthetic drug chelators, and they measure with the urine and the blood and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, they get high numbers in and all this kind of stuff. But what happens to somebody who's really been under the care of a medical practitioner doing those detox programs? Over time, they get weaker and they get more imbalances. They'll initially feel better because of the toxic load. But don't forget, chelators, whether they're natural or drugs, are non-discriminatory. They take the good minerals with the bad. And so then your body, when it already had a problem getting the good minerals where they need to go, will be more predisposed to collecting more of the toxic junk. And that's what I've seen. And so we need to really, I think that, you know, there's people talk about the root protocol and all this kind of stuff, but really the root problem of all health, I believe, is our response to stress with our adrenal glands. You know, it causes us to urinate out a lot of the minerals that we need. Our food supply, even organic stuff, if you analyze it compared to the 1940s, does not have the nutrient density that our bodies need. So we're always in a situation where we're having to adapt and utilize junk. And then the people that don't have constant energy, this is another, explanatory thing you need to realize, is that when your blood sugar tanks in those moments, there's cellular mechanisms that pretty much become deactivated. Kind of like if you had a brand new car at a gas station, the power's out and your tank's empty. You can't drive the car, but it's super simple. Turn on the power and you can fill gas and you can drive. So during any given day, whether you're dehydrated or lacking oxygen or not having, the glucose from the food and your energy tanks, that's when your body grabs out for more toxic metals to act like junkyard parts. Because, you have to look at the body, like once you digest the food and you have all these raw ingredients that your body needs to rebuild itself and maintain health, is it has to pump it everywhere. It's like this it's called a concentration gradient in biology. And the factor to pump all the good stuff where it needs to go is the sodium pump. And that is very delicate. I know we're going to talk about some other things that applies to later on. But, stress, if that ratio isn't right, then you're not going to be able to pump them. But then heavy metals, they don't need that pump and they can go up there. And again, the substitution happens. So detox needs a whole new mentality out there as far as supporting the body's response to stress, providing the right nutrients, and keeping constant, good, available energy so you're less susceptible to collecting more. It's not just about getting rid of it. Yes, daily we have to.
Right. Yeah, we used to sell a chelation product, Mimi's Miracle zeolites. And zeolites are a natural chelator. And the problem is the FDA, probably working in conjunction with the AMA, I never did figure out the whole story, but they decided that chelation can only be done under doctor's supervision, and that all products have to be prescribed for chelation. So, of course, I disagreed with that determination, but we had to pull the product. And natural chelation, and like you said, ideally you don't want to take it in. But I think of like the famous personal development guru Tony Robbins, who lives on an island and ate incredibly well, food grown on the island, and fish. And one day he is giving his personal development speech and collapses on the stage, right? And then comes to find out, do you know this story?
No.
Okay, it's very interesting to listen to because he talks about how he thought he was doing everything right and he had enough mercury to kill a horse. He's lucky he survived. And so it's a fascinating story. And so let's talk about, though I love the preventive angle that you're talking about. But before we get off of it, what are you thinking about chelation and of natural chelators?
I would, if there's like recent heavy exposure to something, I think it has its place. But if you're looking at someone long-term, chronic, low energy, a lot of the health problems that we see people having, it's going to create a lot more imbalances. I end up getting a lot of clients working with me that have been on those kinds of things for years. And, they have their ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster, and they just didn't understand the biology and the chemistry of what was happening. So each person is obviously different. Yeah. And I think we need testing to monitor that with someone who's trained to be able to see, okay, do we want to use some pectins? Do we want to, while we're doing certain things? I'm a big advocate of coffee enemas because of the bile production in it, trapping heavy metals in the intestinal tract. I'm for a lot of other protocols that help and enhance detoxification, but.
Well, coffee enema, I assume you don't go to Starbucks and buy your favorite drink and then insert in the wrong place. I don't know about a coffee enema. And so you're going to have to educate me and those listening on how this works.
Well, coffee's very popular, and there's tons of places that you could go where they get the green organic beans, and they roast them right there, and you can pick them up a few days later. I mean, I can guarantee you just about every town has that.
Okay.
So no need to buy it from Starbucks or the grocery store because it was sitting in the warehouse 6 months or 9 months, you know, so you can get the real fresh stuff.
Okay.
And I'm an advocate for the medium to the dark roast. The green, if you do like a daily coffee enema, literally your skin's going to turn green. There's enough palmitic acid and caffeine in the medium to dark roast so you don't get such a shot of caffeine. And I, you know, when I went to school to do the tissue biopsy hair analysis, I was challenged to become a practitioner, to take a daily near-infrared sauna and a daily coffee enema. So quite the story of how I got adapted to coffee enemas, but I started doing some research. I mean, they've been around for 3,000 years. And, you know, they, I think scientifically got validated when Hitler's army got cut off from medical supplies and they were operating on soldiers. The nurses, you know, when the doctor would give a plain water enema, you know, they thought, gee, you know, the coffee is keeping the doctor going 24/7. So they started pouring coffee in the enemas. And the pain reduction was phenomenal. I mean, it becomes so famous that 3 universities in Europe started using coffee water up rats and figuring out what in the heck is going on. And they figured out amazing things. In 12 minutes, all the caffeine and the palmitic acid left, you know, the rectal area, and went up the portal vein and caused the liver bile ducts to dilate. And when they dilated, then bile production increased, but it also filled the bloodstream with free radical scavengers, antioxidants, turned on enzyme systems, changed the pH of the intestinal tract so the good bacteria is more likely to survive. And it's just phenomenal. I give everybody the 2-week challenge. If somebody says, Eileen, I'm only going to do one thing for my health, what do I do? I said, do a daily coffee enema. And people are going, oh, you're going to mess up your electrolytes and all this. Well, I was in a car wreck in 2013.
Wow.
You know, had to have surgery, and I was in physical therapy. And, you know, for all that blood work and everything, I was like perfect. Absolutely everything was perfect, you know, and for, you know, almost 3 years, I've been doing daily coffee enemas, saunas, that kind of thing. And the lady who owned the physical therapy had bought one of those S3 machines. I don't know if anybody's seen it on Dr. Oz, but it's a device you put your hand on, and it measures your circulating antioxidants. And then in Dr. Oz's show, everybody wore a shirt for the color amount of the antioxidants they had, and most of them were all like bad. Dr. Oz had 75,000 units. Anything above 60,000 was perfect. They're saying, you know, hey, cancer risk is like nil, you know, great. So they use this machine to sell you, you know,
Green
pills
juice or something, yeah.
You know, pills to boost your antioxidant level, you know. And so here I am, just off of anesthesia and everything, you know, put my hand on that thing, 80,000 units. Higher than Dr. Oz. And they go, oh my gosh, you're never going to get cancer. What antioxidants do you take? And I says, well, I don't. I take a daily near-infrared sauna, coffee enema, my supplements, you know, metabolic packs and minerals, you know, by my hair analysis. They're going, wow, that's phenomenal. And so, you know, doing a coffee enema increases glutathione production 600%. How many of you are out there buying glutathione to take, you know, which is a great detoxifier? But, you know, you've got some natural protocols that actually, you know, don't cost that much money once you get your equipment. And it just takes time. If people go, Eileen, how do you have the time to do that every day? I go, well, you know, I don't have any pain in my body. I have all kind of energy. I sleep well. I wake up with energy. So my, you know, routine in the morning, I mean, it sells itself. I mean, what else could I do? You know, why wouldn't I? Now,
seeing as you mentioned glutathione, and you may not even know this, but we're a top seller of glutathione. We move on. This is Me's Miracle Glutathione, and it is a great antioxidant, as you mentioned. But the thing about glutathione, a lot of people don't understand, you notice something unique about this. It's in a spray bottle. Glutathione is made of 3 peptides. And what everyone's doing wrong is they're swallowing the glutathione into their
digestion.
And the digestive system breaks it down to the peptides, and they get 3 peptides into their blood. You have to take it orally. So for those of you wanting to raise your number, and if glutathione is going to be part of the mix, it has to be oral, so it can go into the bloodstream,
mucosal membranes,
walls of your mouth. Yeah. So thank you for laying up that little softball for one of our own supplements. And of course, you want to talk about yours and what you're going to do too. Now, coffee enema every day. Is it expensive? Is it a sustainable thing most people can do? Or is it only for people who are in really bad health? Or is it kind of a daily practice that you're recommending for just about anybody in the modern world? Tell us about those things.
Right. Well, before the turn of the century, just about everybody, you look back through the literature, every home, everybody did coffee enemas all the time.
Really?
Yeah. And so, when we...
Wait, which century?
Well, like in the 1800s.
Late 1800s.
Up to the early 1900s. Yeah, really? Everybody had coffee enemas. Everybody did them. It was very well known. And, then we started having pills for problems, and, people got out of the teaching of it carrying on. And I mean, Gerson, he has his therapy and did a lot with cancer and things like that. I mean, it's undisputed the benefits of the coffee enema. And with my training and what I've seen, I've had people that come in, do a consult for their hair analysis, and then we cut their hair, and then it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get the test results in the program back. Mm-hmm. And this one guy, this married couple, he was on, I don't know, antidepressants, things for asthma, all this kind of stuff, medications. He was just a wreck. And he said, I'll get that coffee enema bag. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. And so a month later, we come back and I'm doing the consult. 80% of the guy's symptoms are gone. He doesn't even need to use his allergy inhaler. His mood's improved, like all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So then I'm telling him the program. I says, you cannot take all the supplements they say, because your body's going to win the lottery and it's going to detox faster and you're going to have every imaginable symptom. He goes, I'll just take 2 coffee enemas a day and I'll be fine,
Yeah.
But so it's amazing. One lady, she was in so much pain, she couldn't even walk down her driveway 20 feet to the mailbox. After my 2-week challenge, she could walk down to the mailbox without pain. I mean, it works pretty quick. And so I just tell people, I'll never ask you to do a coffee enema again. I just want you to do the 2-week challenge every day. And okay. I tell them all the pitfalls. Now, I bought myself a $300 Kalima board so I could lay down, so I don't have to get up, had an ozone sprayer to clean it, all this kind of stuff. Because people, you typically have to lay down and then your knees or your back to get up. And then when you do, everything goes out because you have no rectal control. And so, they have all these ways of catching it till you get the control, but, and then you can't hold it for 12 minutes and all this kind of stuff. So I recently came up with a solution. It's a stand-up pump, so you can, get in the shower, fill up, and then sit there and rub your ascending, transverse, parts of your colon, take a long shower. Then when you need to eliminate, get out and get on the toilet, and then go back in, refill, do it again. And so I've made it super simple and super easy. But now that we know so much about the good bacteria in the gut and immunity and everything else, so getting that extra bile, changing the pH so it's more conducive to the good guys to live, it's just something that I do recommend that everybody do.
And do they just buy the coffee locally? So what are you selling? Do you have a product that you mentioned your stand-up product?
Yeah, that's called the Enema Fix.
The Enema Fix.
it's just a glass jar with the handle of 33 ounce that has an adapter that screws on with the pump, so that with a long hose and different tips, so you can actually do this in the shower, standing up. So anybody with knee, back problems, I mean, you could still lay down if you wanted to, but it just takes the excuse out. That's what I wanted to do, is give people no excuse to try it or do it. And so that's, what we did. And just organic, medium to dark roast coffee. I mean, any coffee will really work, but why go with the healthier version of the coffee, because after all, we want to protect what goes in our body, start using healthier versions of what we're used to. And so it's super simple. If somebody says, I'm only going to do one thing, that's what I would do. And I've had multiple people where 80% of their problems go away in less than a month of doing it. I mean, it sells itself.
Okay.
Just take the challenge.
Well, that's terrific. And obviously something you're excited about and have had a lot of success with. You also talk about ozone. Ozone's become an important part of your practice. Tell us about that. Where did that how did that start for you? And
your
MO with ozone?
Well, it was in the 1990s. I bought an Alpine air purifier that was an ozone generator. And there's probably a lot of people out there that had those, and here we thought we were doing ourselves great things by smelling that ozone. We can talk about that later, but it actually damages lung tissue and competes for oxygen receptor sites. So all that fresh air you were smelling, the ozone and inhaling, it was because your body needed more oxygen, so it was forced to inhale more. It's not because you were getting better lung function. Okay, so we learn these things from poisoning ourselves over the years, right?
Awesome.
Then in about 1998, I met a person from New Zealand who was drinking ozonated water. And at that time, I still hadn't figured out the root cause of my candida problem. And when I started drinking ozonated water on an empty stomach, man, it kept the candida under control like crazy. And at that time, I was drinking more coffee than I should have. Today, I only have 1 8-ounce cup a day. That is it when I'm outside in the sunshine, barefoot, grounding, those kinds of things. But back then, I drank way too much coffee. And I started noticing when I was drinking the ozonated water, oh my gosh, I didn't want the coffee. It was almost like having coffee, but clean energy without the jitters or without, the crash or anything like that. And then started thinking about all the parasites and the Hulda-Clark cleanse and all that about that time, So it's like, okay, the first line of defense, let's clean our food, because everything's grown in dirt. So you got the parasite larvae that you can't see that's going to go in your body and hatch, especially if you're juicing and you're not cooking the items. So cleaning things with ozonated water through lysosis, the cell, the parasite larvae sac, a hole gets blown in it, so then it doesn't hatch. And then, it'll kill E. coli, salmonella, listeria, everything, the foodborne pathogens that are making us sick. We can protect ourselves. So I started cleaning my foods and everything with, ozonated water. And then years later, I learned about the connection between oxygen and ozone. And then how our oxygen metabolism works in our body. And so people with our lives, planet Earth has less oxygen. A lot of people are sedentary. We're indoors right now, so there's less oxygen concentrations in the air around us. And so our body, though, has a threshold of a minimum amount of oxygen to function, just like water. 80% of people are dehydrated. So their body's in survival mode, reallocating water based on histamine receptors. Right. Your body does something similar with oxygen. And so breathing oxygen is great, and I have a Gizmo for that. But drinking ozonated water, here's the miracle. You can diffuse ozone gas into water, and I have a device that destructs all the gas that wouldn't dissolve in the water, so you don't hurt your lungs, because that's what the bad rap with ozone is. is hurting your lungs. And so nobody was doing that. So I have a Gizmo that you can safely, even if you have COPD or asthma, you can get the benefit because you will smell no ozone gas in the air. It'll be all dissolved in the water. So when you make this water and you drink it, you need to drink it on an empty stomach because you have to remember that it's 3 singlets of oxygen, and anything that's not a pair in nature, is uneven. So that third singlet breaks off. That's the oxidizer, that O1. And what it'll do in your body, just like the EPA who drills wells in contaminated aquifers and injects ozonated water to clean it up, we're mostly water. So that oxidation, that's why you want to do it on an empty stomach, because you don't want to do it when you're taking your supplements, because we don't want to break it down. Oh. So we do it on an empty stomach. We drink the ozonated water and it purifies, it detoxifies us. But then if that's not a miracle enough, you're left with pure O2. So what happens in the body when you don't have enough oxygen? It's like a car when your alternator's bad, so your battery's not going to hold a charge. So you're jump starting it and you're driving it without the lights and you're not putting the air conditioner on just to get from point A to point B. You're kind of like a jalopy. Well, your body has this hierarchy. And if you have plenty of oxygen, your cells have an enzyme coating around them. And when you don't have enough, it'll prioritize what cells not to protect, and that enzyme coating goes away. So then that cell that doesn't have the enzyme coating then becomes susceptible to infection by bacteria, viruses, funguses, all that, to morph into cancer, all these things. So, and the thing about it is if you can drink ozonated water, then your body will make and protect more cells. So then it also, helps with immunity, all kinds of things. It's anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of NIH studies about what ozonated water does to the biology in the body. And it's absolutely amazing when it's used correctly. Don't breathe the glass. Drink it on an empty stomach, and not before bed, because it's going to give you too much energy. We want to sleep, and it'll help you reduce your coffee. In me, it helped keep the candida under control until I fixed my zinc copper ratio problem with weak adrenals of why that was happening. But yeah, ozone is like an absolute miracle. I mean, for keeping our food safe, giving us oxygen. Corona, every pathogen has a contact concentration and time to kill it. Like E. coli is killed in 15 seconds at 0.1 part per million dissolved ozone. So I've got a machine that'll make 2 part per million ozone. It's crazy.
And is that how ozonated water is made? Is through a machine? It's not like putting a tablet in a water bottle or something like that?
It's made with a generator. So you diffuse it because this reaction happens so quickly that you got to drink it and get it in, or like soak your vegetables, or, if you had salmonella infected strawberries, you could ozonate them and it would kill all of it and you would eat it, Yeah. I was issued a patent, which I haven't got that one on the market yet, for under counter, that will degas. It's a new way to degas the ozone when it's under pressure. And it's actually going to disrupt the whole industry of all this expensive degassing equipment. It'll make it feasible to put it under your own kitchen sink. But can you imagine? I dream about being on the Bobby Flay cooking show holding a chicken breast. They say don't rinse it, right? Because of salmonella on it. Have the black light there, flip on the faucet, rinse it, have it be all gone and clean, Yeah. Ozone is an absolute miracle.
How do people listening take advantage of it, though? How do they use it? How do they do it?
Well, I have an ozone generator, and then I have the diffuser degasser. It actually diffuses ozone gas in the water 10 times faster, so you don't have to run your machine as long, so it extends machine life. It also gets rid of all the hazardous part of inhaling it. And then you can use that to clean your vegetables, to drink. People, even after the coffee enema, will follow up with ozonated water. I mean,
is it like a small appliance, or is it?
Yeah.
How big is it?
Yeah, it's like the size of a book. I didn't bring one in here for show and tell, but yeah, it's like about that tall, about that wide, and about that thick. And
Okay.
it comes with a remote control. It's got a timer. And I tell people, as far as breathing ozone, if you're going to leave the place, say you burned dinner and you're leaving, turn the ozone machine on, unhook the hose, and run it, and it'd be on intermittent timer, and have it not run for 2 hours before you come back. And then your whole house will feel like a fresh rainstorm. It's cleaned the air, so there's safe ways to use it.
Okay. Interesting. I've taken a lot of your time, but I want to do one more topic before I let you go.
Okay.
And you've mentioned it before, and it's in your bio too, and it's got to do with heat. You talk about phototherapy, sauna therapy, hot yoga. You like heat as a tool. Infrared sauna, you'd mentioned that before too. So why don't you talk to us about those therapies and what they do, what you're advising people to do about them and whatnot?
Sure. I mean, before I went back to school to become the practitioner, and I got the challenge to do the daily coffee enema, but I was also given a challenge to do a daily near infrared incandescent bulb sauna, which I thought the doctor was prejudiced, really, because I had this $2,800 cabin with all these heaters everywhere, and I was sweating like crazy, And so finally, I made the switch. I was going to California, and so I made myself, because my dad's mechanical, and so I am too, and so I made myself this near-infrared sauna. Day one, I'm going, wow, I didn't sweat very much. Day two, I started sweating more. By day three, I was sweating as much as in my other sauna, but this clean, energetic feeling came over me like I never felt before. I mean, it was transformational to the point where I would never. And then we were learning about high EMF. So I got my meter and I'm measuring my old sauna. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm being bombarded everywhere. And so I got rid of that sauna. And then because of my background, nuclear power, and just my dad, it's like I'm a Gizmo woman. And so I buy everything and try it and try to make a better widget. And so it's like, but what I do is I use it, then I fall asleep. And in the morning, I see the blueprint and the better way to do it and that kind of thing. And so I learned, and that's the time my son was also taking all the biology and chemistry classes. And, I'm saying, what is the deal with this doctor? Why do I feel this way with the near infrared? He goes, oh, Mom, it's phototherapy. And he gave me a website on the University of Washington to read about it. He says, Mom, your mitochondria is in every cell, and you just shine light on it. You don't have to eat and digest the food and assimilate it. You just shine that bandwidth of light on it, and it'll produce energy. That's why you feel so good, Mom. And so with the near infrared, is 550, is 700 to 400 nanometers of light. And so there's a lot of multi-spectrum saunas out there now because of the newest research of how great, cancer.gov is shining near infrared light on inoperable tumors. In Germany, they're having women exercise in front of near infrared lights compared to not, and they're losing 400% more fat and weight and contouring their body. And near infrared is just phenomenal because it reduces pain, it increases your flexibility. And so with me, I went to the near infrared, but then, without an insulated cabin, because most saunas, even the wood ones, are like an R1 or R2. They don't have very much insulation. So it's like you have to heat them up for a long time to get in. And it's like, I don't want to have to heat anything up. I wanted to be able to just jump in and have it like instantly hot. So, and then light travels at the speed of light. So I wanted to capture all that healing frequency to maximize the phototherapy. So I came up with some radiant material that also shields out all the EMF. But then the insulated panels are R12. So in my sauna, it gets 120 degrees in 5 minutes, and it'll work on an outlet that your hairdryer works on. And you'll sweat twice as much in half the time. And so I made one big enough to do yoga because, you know, hot yoga is popular. And part of that a European study with the women contouring their body and having less pain and better blood sugar was exercising under near-infrared lights. So I figured, hey, why not? So we have that version of it, and people put their spinner bikes in there and bike with it. There's a New York City cop who's got one that does that for training. You know, it's just phenomenal. UFC fighter Nate Diaz, they shadow box, and Gilbert Melendez, they all shadow box inside their sauna fixes.
So these are pretty big. They're not the little black box that you sit on the stool with your head poking out.
No, you want your head inside. You know, get all the phototherapy everywhere going around. I mean, for me, I wear an organic sauna hat because that'll dry out your hair, you know, and I already have curly hair as it is, you know, but yeah, you just go in there and move underneath that light, and it's phenomenal. You just feel, I mean, I've lost 25 pounds, and it started when I went to daily, you know, when I got my yoga sauna at home, before I had the one that I just laid down in. And then I was reading about the studies about how moving, because your body has an overall metabolism that fluctuates based on the circadian rhythm. Then each cell in your body has a metabolism, and your fat cells have the slowest metabolism. So that light, that mitochondria getting into that fat cell speeds it up. So you burn the fat for energy, and it contours your body. And so with trapping all that light, so it's just rebombarding you, and having the insulation and being able to move, it's transformational. I did that and started going outside barefoot, watching the morning sun, and then eating in an 8-hour window. And I lost 25 pounds. I went from a loose 14, some things I had to wear a size 14. Now I'm in a size 6. And I didn't change. I mean, I've always eaten kind of healthy, more animal protein, steamed vegetables, less fruits, less grains, you know, low glycemic, you know, that's how I've eaten for years. And so I really didn't change that at all. And I had that much of a transformation.
But this sounds big. Is it this huge, big sauna?
No. It's 3 feet wide, and it's 7 foot, 10 inches long. So it's not a big footprint. The small one is 3 foot by 4 foot print in the stand-up. And then it's 6'6" tall. Actually, I have an extension now because of the NBA basketball players. They need it taller. So now it's going to be 7'6" tall with an extension. And then you can absolutely do a full yoga practice by putting your, you know, whole arms up and stuff. And
so you're enclosed, you're inside of the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like my rowing machine here. Let's see if we can do this. So there's my rowing machine.
Right.
And so I could put my machine inside of there.
How wide is it? What are those yellow things?
Oh, those are just dip bars that are sitting in front of it.
As long as it's not longer than 7 foot, 10 inches long, it can go inside there and you can do your rowing in that yoga.
Interesting.
I mean, there's a guy that just got done training to do the Death Valley on his bicycle. And so they put 2 sauna lamps in there. You can get the hot yoga tent as hot as 190 degrees with double lamps. And I mean, these people, they're like kettlebells, and they're doing these biohackers. They're just extreme athletes, and but yeah, I just keep mine about 140.
Okay, one last thing before I let you go. This has been super interesting. You have brought up all these ideas, quite unique, some of these. I mean, some of these things I'm aware of. You know, I've actually done infrared sauna, back when I was doing cryotherapy, I did cryotherapy and then infrared, and that's actually quite interesting to do both, to go extremely cold, extremely hot.
I jump in a cold shower afterwards.
Yeah, I do all my showers cold. I don't do anything else. I just turn on cold and shower. I used to shower, then turn it down and stand in it. And one day I thought, why am I doing this? Like, I just turn it on cold and shower, and I did, and it was fine. It took me a while. It took me a few months. But after a few months of turning it down cold, I just acclimated my body. As a matter of fact, I noticed when winter came, I live in Utah where we have hot summers, cold winters, and I'm normally a wimp in the cold. I don't like the cold. And yet one day I went out not dressed well enough for the winter and was really surprised, like, oh, I'm fine. Cold doesn't bother me. And now I just turn it on cold, and that's been great. So I'm with you on the cold. Now, another guest I had, Tim James from Chemical Free Body, he hit me up recently about near-infrared saunas, and he's got one that he's found in Korea or something. And he was telling me how the technology of these things, how you alluded to the right type of light and the installation, all the various things that go into it to get the right effect. And because, you can buy some cheap box on Amazon, for $400, and he was telling me how, oh, well, that won't cut it. You got to get like, and he's giving me all the scientific info on the light rays, right, that this does, which I'm sure you're an expert on and you've talked about already on the show. So these are things that are just coming onto my radar. You've been doing it a lot. I take it you have clients. Do you do coaching, or are you a product seller? What's your business model?
We ship to 91 countries in the world, and I do some hair analysis with coaching. I've tried to set it up with a pattern report and with teaching material so I can spend less time with the people, because I have to multiply my efforts. Because I'm bringing on new products all the time. And that's my passion. I'm a creator. I'm getting the better Gizmo, the widget out there to help us restore our health. And so it's more for the equipment, teaching the lifestyle, and I'd say the main difference between my sauna and other ones on the market, and mine's 0 EMF, but it's the incandescent bulb. That saunas that have all the heaters, even though they might have multi-spectrum rays, the depth that they penetrate is different, but also the ambient temperature is usually the same around the whole enclosure. But that's not true in mine, because it's hottest where the lamps are. So what your body does is it shunts the blood towards the lights, because that's where it's hottest. And then it'll vasculate your tissues and cause water to escape on the surface of the skin, sweat, to cool you down. Literally, when you first get in my sauna, you're going to sweat on one side of your body. It's weird. And then you wipe it down, because that cools you down, and you want to get your core body temperature up. You rotate 180 degrees, and your body does the same thing. So the circulation effect in my type of sauna is twice, because you get the blood shunting and it goes deeper. And with the near infrared, the spectrum of rays are 550 to about 3,400, and it peaks all at the therapeutic levels, the 8s, the 9s, the 1100s. And so you get a full spectrum, where a lot of those other saunas, they say they have near infrared, and they're putting in little punky LED lights.
Yeah. Okay.
And they don't penetrate the body tissue like the incandescent bulb. So it's not the same, even though they might be non-toxic. I mean, I use organic cotton, zippers with no lead. I mean, the frames without, I have it ROHS tested, built to European standards. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but it's undisputed. Heat stress therapy is great. Just stay away from the EMF and get as many light frequencies as you can. And if you can exercise too and contour your body and feel better because of the maximized phototherapy, and not have to preheat it and spend less money on electricity, great.
Well, this has been terrific. And everyone listening, this is Eileen Durfee, the Gizmo girl. Is that what you called yourself?
I have been that way my whole life. I just... and part of my creations is I just don't want another Gizmo that's sitting in the closet or garage.
And so,
So
how do people learn about your gizmos?
They can go to Creatix, Creatrix as an X-ray, solutions.com. I mean, we have everything from skincare we make to, ozone generators, even for growing, CBD, plants for that make the plants healthier, to using it in your home, to the saunas, to, the coffee enemas. And then we do hair analysis and the supplements and, just everything. We're bringing on a whole spinal fitness line, because that's the other thing is that people are in chronic pain. A lot of it's because they got the wrong shape and gravity, and their muscles are tight all the time. And that consumes energy,
right,
and creates pain. So part of the overall health is protect what you breathe and drink and put on your skin and get it out when it gets in there. But let's use less energy just existing and moving, so that's kind of like everything.
Hey, Eileen, the mad scientist with the patents on her gizmos, all available at creatixsolutions.com. And I'm fascinated. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't look at your website before we did the interview, but now you've got me totally curious. Like, I really want to learn more about these things, and I'm sure people listening do too. So anything else you want to add before I let you go, Eileen?
I would just recommend, I think the number one thing that we're all doing out there in the wellness revolution is we're trying to find something so that we don't have these problems, to give our body. Just like my underlying feeling was, if my body just had what it needed, it would function properly. But there's the number one mistake is you might chase a symptom and feel better, but then have something else crop up, and you're not putting two and two together. Sometimes chasing the symptoms might make the underlying cause worse. And so I really think laboratory hair analysis, even if you don't take the recommended supplements that they provide, but what's it doing to me? Is this really, one last story. I had a massage therapist who couldn't even work anymore. Her hands were so swollen, and she was and so we did her hair test. And then she put down how much vitamin C she was taking. And I says, oh my gosh, vitamin C is a sodium stimulator, and your sodium potassium ratio is sky high. That's inflammation. That is pain. So she dialed that way back down and took the metabolic pack and the sodium potassium adjuster that we gave her on the program. And I mean, this is like she couldn't work for 8 months. And her naturopath had her taking all that vitamin C. And within 2 months, she could close her hands. Within 4 months, she was back working. And it was just because she was taking vitamin C.
You're talking my language. I mean, we make our living selling supplements, but on the show here, our supplements are designed to fill in deficiencies. We don't have anything that isn't balanced. And even for myself, I had a hair analysis done this year. I get blood work done or hair analysis every single year. So you got me sold on that. I've been doing that for a long time. And my first remedy is always food. For example, I was low on selenium this time. And guess what's high in selenium is cashews. And I like cashews. I was also low on potassium. And bananas are an excellent source of potassium. And so what you're saying is something I deeply believe in, which is too many people seem to be going around taking care of their health life with Band-Aids. I have this scrape, I need a Band-Aid, right? And so most health scrapes don't need Band-Aids. What they need is a daily way of living that's supporting good health, good nutrition, exercise, drinking lots of water, the very basics, right? And so, and then the supplements supplement that. For example, I mentioned glutathione earlier. Our body makes glutathione, but we know from the science that you're producing 30% less glutathione by the time you hit your 30s and 40s. And we know, and you mentioned NIH, the National Institute of Health Library of Studies. There's almost 100,000 studies just on glutathione. And yes, our body makes it, but it gets less good at making it. And so I supplement glutathione because it's a biohack. Because I can take it and put more in my bloodstream than my body can make and raise my antioxidant level. And so I've designed my company much the way you have, trying to address real scientific needs. And I love the way you've couched this, because I've never really put it this way that you do. This issue of how chasing the symptoms outside of a holistic approach is just like whack-a-mole. It's like health whack-a-mole. The mole is up, so you go whack it, instead of like maybe like unplugging the stupid whack-a-mole box so the mole stop popping up.
Yeah.
Sometimes health is like that. It's like, why am I whacking moles when I can walk behind this machine and turn it off? And to me, a really good health regimen is just turning off that thing that is constantly causing you all this grief. And I think you've presented that argument here today, which I totally...
So simple things. We have the 21st century disease. We're indoors too much of the time. We don't get the sunlight that we need. Sunlight's had a bad rap. I mean, and the other thing is there is no silver bullet. Right. You know, we're aging. I want to be biologically younger. I mean, get into peptide injections. I have my own hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I mean, it's just like, but you have to use them. You have to develop a lifestyle. And I always tell people, start with something small.
Yeah.
And then as you feel that benefit, then you're going to be encouraged to do something more. You know, we're not telling people to just all of a sudden they have to have a full-time job of detoxing and taking care of their body. Just go slow.
Right.
You'd be shocked at the changes.
How about just get enough water? How about today you drink enough water?
I know 80% of disease is dehydration. 80%. Yeah. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Well, Eileen, this has been a lot of fun. You've been very interesting. And maybe on the title when we produce this on our podcast, it needs to be Gizmo Girl. I kind of sticking with me here. That's pretty cool. And it sounds like you come from a great family that's inspired you to become what you are and to be someone who creates patents and is changing the world with new technology. It's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thanks again, Eileen. And for those of you listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.
Yep. Bye.